good to see you. Good morning, I'm Nicky Campbell. Welcome to The Big Questions. Today we're live from Harris Academy in Peckham. So, welcome everybody to The Big Questions. Now, on Friday, a Bailey judge brought to an end any criminal proceedings against Lord Janner, who died in December. Lord Janner suffered from advanced Alzheimer's disease and was declared unfit to stand trial for 22 counts of sexual abuse against boys, said to have been committed from the 1960s onwards. But there was to be a trial of the facts to be held in April, where a jury would have decided if the allegations were true or false. Friday's decision means this will not go ahead. And of course, civil claims against Lord Janner's estate for damages caused by the alleged crimes can and will continue, should crimes die with the accused. Matthew Scott, criminal barrister and blogger, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Matthew. So, the trial of the facts hasn't gone ahead, so there'll be no justice in a technical sense. And many of the victims, or as you would say, the alleged victims, will feel there has been no justice in a moral sense as well. They have not had justice. They have not had their day in court. And that could equally apply, thinking about it, to Lord Janner's family, who have not had the chance in court to clear his name. So you can understand, can you not, why people are so angry?
I can understand why people are angry and upset about the fact that a trial won't take place of these very serious allegations. I don't think it's right to say there will necessarily be no justice. There will be no criminal justice because the criminal law doesn't allow the trial of a dead person. But there are other ways of achieving justice. There's an inquiry set up to look into allegations of this sort, and the New Zealand judge who's chairing that inquiry, Justice Goddard, has said that she will look into the allegations against Lord Janner. There's talk of witnesses giving evidence on television, if they want to do that, in public. And she will no doubt come to a conclusion about whether they were true or not. But why not a trial of the facts? Well, the problem is you cannot have a criminal trial without a defendant to defend himself, because our justice system requires two sides, prosecution and defence, to give evidence, to challenge each other's evidence, to cross-examine witnesses, and out of that, we hope that the truth will emerge and a criminal verdict will emerge.
The problem is Goddard's going to take about 5 years, isn't it, at least? Well, we don't know how long it will take to deal with the aspect of the inquiry that's going to be looking at Lord Janner. It may take a long time. It may be that Justice Goddard will be able to give some preliminary verdict or finding in relation to that well before 5 years. That's really a matter for her. We don't know how long it will take. Chilcott's not a great precedent, as I have to say. Don Foster, journalist and author, I mean, his point, you know, you can't have a trial of the facts if the defendant is dead.
Yes, I mean, of course you can't, but I think it's very, very disappointing for the victims in this case that they will never have their evidence heard in court. And especially in the Janner case, previously, you know, the Crown Prosecution Service looked at the evidence and said there was a case to answer. And I think political elites and, you know, the police and everybody around Janner has a case to answer on why they protected him for so long, why he wasn't brought to justice while he was alive. I mean, and these cases, you know, and these crimes date back to the 60s.
So a trial of the facts could have got to the heart of that, this idea there was a web of protection.
Yeah, and because the victims wanted to be heard back in the 90s, and over again, Janner was protected from ending up in court. He was protected in Parliament by MPs who sought to prop up his reputation. The police the police didn't deal with it properly, and they've accepted that. And I think it's really, really disappointing for the victims that they never will get their evidence heard in court.
Joshua.
Well, first of all, it's not true that the alleged victims won't get their evidence heard in court if they're going to go ahead as they plan to do with civil proceedings. Secondly, as Matthew says, there is the inquiry. But there's this great misunderstanding about this trial of the facts. The trial of the facts would not have established whether or not Janner was guilty, because he would not have been in a position to put his defence. The trial of the facts is simply a procedure to ensure that somebody is not sent to a mental hospital indefinitely when no crime has been committed. It doesn't amount to a poor person's trial or a trial of somebody in their absence. It simply establishes whether the facts as alleged were committed.
But the victims want their day in court.
Well, tough. This is not what the criminal justice system is about. The criminal justice system is there to decide whether a person who is accused of a crime is guilty with all the defences available to it. It is not a poor man's public inquiry. It is not a way of delivering closure to alleged victims. That is not what a criminal trial is about.
Peter Saunders from NAPAC. First of all, Peter, could you give us an idea, in the light of this decision, in the wake of this decision, how the victims, alleged victims, how they feel about this decision? There would be no trial of the facts.
Understandably devastated, but can I put it into context, Nicky? I think the context is so important. A couple of days ago, and bear with me because I can go around the houses, but I'll be quick. A couple of days ago, Tim Peake was looking down at our tiny little planet. Tiny little polluted planet, where up until Planet Earth Foundation initiated a movement that eradicated something like 50% of child death through starvation. Mm-hmm. On the planet today, that little planet, this planet, there's in excess of 1 billion children being abused every year. 1 billion. That is a lot of people, including hundreds and hundreds of thousands of children in this country. Now, anybody who has been seen or identified
We're
to
talking
be
about one
part
individual,
of
Lord
that
Janner.
Holocaust,
We're talking about one
a part
individual,
of
Lord
that
Janner.
Holocaust.
And there was a chance in 1991 for that case to have gone ahead.
I'm getting to that. Let me finish.
Go on then.
Anybody who has been a part of that Holocaust, because that is what it is, it's a Holocaust against our children, of which Janner stands accused. And 20 years ago, you're quite right, the CPS said there was overwhelming evidence that he should have been put before the courts. I think Dawn has explained the cover-ups, the reasons why it hasn't happened. It's a disgrace.
So there should have been a trial. There should have been a trial of the facts.
There absolutely should, because it's like looking back at the Nazis. Okay, most of them are dead, thank God. But they committed the most horrendous crimes against humanity. Just because they're dead doesn't mean to say we cannot learn lessons and that we cannot expose the truth, because the truth, A, is what sets us free, and I say that as a Christian man, and the truth is what will help protect our children in the future, Nicky.
You cannot try dead people. We didn't try Jimmy Savile. We don't try dead people. Dead people can't defend themselves. Dead people can't be punished. You can have inquiries. You can perhaps take money from their estate. But you can't put a dead person on trial.
I really wish you wouldn't bring money. I really wish you wouldn't bring money into it, Joshua, because because I work at NAPAC. I'm a survivor of abuse. We hear from thousands of survivors of abuse every single year. Money does not come into this at all.
Why are they suing?
Because sometimes it's the only option.
Well, it's not.
One reason is, or a number of reasons. One is if you hit people where it hurts, and that is institutions in the pocket, then they may change. Otherwise, they won't change. And we know they haven't changed. Children are no less safe today than they were 30 or 40 years ago, which is criminal. The other thing is people want to sue, and very often people who sue, as I say, they don't do it for the money, take the money and then give it to charity or make good use of it. And then there may be change. We've got to have change. We have over 1 million children in this country every year still suffering abuse. It's an utter criminal outrage.
Yeah. Milo Yiannopoulos wants to come in.
Something that might help with this is a relaxation of our defamation laws. I did a post after Savile died that I was, attacked for, and I said, you know what, the Jersey scandals are going to come out now. And he was barely cold, but I did it anyway because everybody in the press knew. Everybody knew. And why did they not write about Savile? Largely defamation. Largely because we have, ridiculous libel laws. I think if some of those were relaxed, our press would improve, and we'd also be able to try these people while they're still alive. Because many of these cases come to light thanks to the work of the media. I know everybody loves to hate journalists these days, but we do, on occasion, do some good work.
And Peter, of course, there is the...
Survivors and the media.
Survivors. I mean, in so many cases,
if we
it's the
had done this
bravery.
with Savile, if we had done this with Janner, they would have been tried while they were alive. And the way to achieve that is to relax the stupid libel laws we have.
OK. But Peter, as a survivor, Peter, you well know. I mean, I know very well the brilliant work you've done. And others, and brave people who are survivors who've come forward. It is not easy, is it? But what do you say to those people who've gone out on a limb and said, oh, come on, why has it taken till now for those people to come forward and talk about Greville, Janner? Why has it taken so long? How would you answer that?
We haven't got time for me to explain everything about why children do not speak out when they are being raped, tortured, abused. What we do know is that eventually many of them, thank God, are feeling able and having the strength to come forward and to speak out now, because that's one of the most powerful ways we will protect our children in the future, is to speak out.
Ellen wants to come in here.
We have to be very careful about using such hysterical language around child abuse, and I think that actually
hysterical language such as?
calling it a holocaust of child abuse, it would be extremely
a year,
worrying
to me, is a
kind of
holocaust.
idea, and it's just not true. The whole point about the Jana case, it's not so much about, I don't think people are so much interested in whether we're trying a dead man or not, where I think it's perverse to, I would agree with you, to try a dead man. It's more about holding kind of emotional group therapy for the alleged victims, for the complainants, and actually the media has called them victims throughout, when actually because there has been no case, they are actually not victims yet until somebody is proven guilty.
They're alleged victims, you're saying?
Yes, yeah, the whole point is, are we going through the law, are we doing a case, or are we holding an emotional group therapy session, which results in such hysterical reactions?
OK, any views on this? Any views on Lord Jana in the audience? Peter, just put your hand up and I'll come to you if you want to. Nobody at this stage wants to say anything, come forth, but Kate does. Kate Smurthwaite. There's a surprise.
Yes, fancy that. Well, I think this, unfortunately, when it comes to running trials on people who've already died, it almost comes down to, what are we trying to achieve? Is the problem. And I think it's really important that victims get a chance to talk about their experience, and I think it's really important that we take the opportunity to learn lessons. And I actually think in a case like Lord Jenner's case, there's probably good grounds for saying that some of those people around who were protecting Lord Jenner should be brought to trial, and they may well still be alive and still able to face trial. But on that, I think what we also need to talk about is, there's a limited amount of money out there to be spent on doing these kind of things, and we have to make sure that we prioritise things first. So obviously we have to take to trial first those people who might still be on the streets and still be a threat and still be a risk. And I think we're doing a very, very bad job. And we're doing a very, very bad job of that. Right now, we are spending more on Operation U Street than we are on protecting young people who currently might be at risk. And we need to change that. We need to make sure that we sort that out.
This idea that there is some sort of cabal of people who protected Lord Janner, it's completely unproven. It seems to be being accepted by everybody who's spoken so far in this room that there's some sort of secret conspiracy to protect him in Parliament and the police and the CPS. It's completely unproven. And it needs to be said that the inquiry that Justice Goddard is holding is to try and establish exactly whether there is any such thing at all, or whether it's the product of a rather overexcited imagination.
Go on.
I just go on record to say I don't believe for a moment that there's some sort of conspiracy to protect Lord Janner. I think probably it will be shown to be nonsense. I might be wrong. I hope not.
So how do you explain
Dawn.
being taken to trial then?
So Dawn was going to come in. I'll come to you, Connie. Go on.
I think that you will be proven wrong, but I also think that this kind of very, very dismissive attitude towards victims and calling victims...
Would you ever say alleged victims in this case?
Yes, I would.
There's a difference. Are they alleged victims?
Yes,
or are
there
they
are.
victims?
Yes.
They haven't been proven to be victims yet because it hasn't gone through the proper
I do understand how words work, but just if you bear with me a second, I think calling alleged victims hysterical because of their use is absolutely pathetic, and it diminishes their experience. And it's that sort of diminishing of people's abuse that has caused this to happen. A lot of the reason why people didn't come forward about Savile and Jana sooner is because they were repeatedly told that their experiences weren't abuse over and over again. So I think we have to be very, very careful about how we talk to abuse victims about what they experience.
Yeah,
well, I agree with
you. Joshua, what about the idea of the establishment, closing ranks on this one? Institutions, the establishment, politicians, all along the way, and protecting their own.
If that were true, that would be bad, and I want to know whether it's true or not. The fact is that because we've wasted the past 10 months since the Director of Public Prosecutions said there should be no prosecution, we don't yet have the report of a retired judge called Sir Richard Henriques, probably going to be published next week, which will tell us, to some extent, what went wrong with the Crown Prosecution Service and what went wrong with the police investigation. It was the police and the Crown Prosecution Service that decided between them, effectively, that Jana was not going to be prosecuted. I'm not aware of any establishment cover-up. I'm not sure how that could have been done. And what about all the people who we now think were wrongly accused? Field Marshal Bramall, Edward Heath, Leon Britton, all these people who were accused by anonymous people of child abuse, and the police investigate, they find there's nothing to it, and eventually, if the alleged defendants, potential defendants, are still alive, they get round to telling them and telling the rest of us.
Peter?
I think if we don't expose the truth, if we don't put a spotlight on what's gone wrong in the past, and I hear exactly what Joshua was saying about people that have been accused and not found to have been having evidence against them. But if, you know, we were talking earlier about the fact that we're going to spend £30,000 billion on Trident. Or 30,000.
That was actually before we came on the air.
I know
so
that, but I'm just saying, my vote would be that we divert some of that wasted money into better social services, into the police, into all sorts of ways of protecting our children.
Yeah, do you think this idea then that there's a certain momentum for this at the moment, Matthew, a certain climate? Do you think we're living in different times to an extent?
Well, I do think there is, and I think that social media probably has a lot to do with it. The idea that there is some sort of conspiracy to protect paedophiles has been given a lot of mileage by social media and certain websites who seem to make a great deal of it. And I think it's very dangerous because it does lead to the sort of, if I may say so, Peter, rather over-the-top language, talking about a holocaust of billions and people being protected by shadowy cabals of establishment figures. And I think it's something we've got to be careful about. And I quite agree with Dawn that we need to be very careful about the sort of language we use. And using a motive...
I'm never historical. I'm never hysterical about it. Cyril Smith as an example. Cyril Smith, MP.
He had a lot of friends around him who'd protected him,
He was protected.
That's incontrovertible.
The police were going to arrest that man years ago, and Special Branch, under the orders of their political masters, stepped in and prevented him from being apprehended, therefore he could carry on raping children.
I'm not...
And Savile had a lot of friends in high places, didn't he?
But the fact that somebody has friends in high places doesn't mean that their friends in high places are protecting them. I spend quite a lot of my time not just defending people accused of crimes against children, but prosecuting people accused of crimes against children. I have quite a lot of contact with the police and the CPS. Not once has anyone in the police or the CPS ever, over the many years that I've been involved in this sort of thing, ever suggested to me, well, we should go soft on some particular individual because he's friendly with a Freemason or friendly with a senior politician. It's in my experience, for what it's worth, and of course it doesn't prove everything, but it's complete nonsense. Do
you think some people are seriously in it for the money? Coming forward and talking about it?
I've no doubt that some people are in it for the money. I've no doubt that the majority are not. But certainly money plays a part with some people.
Dawn.
I find that quite offensive. I mean, there are much easier ways to make money from the criminal justice system. I've done some work on crash for cash schemes where you drive into the back of a car. That seems to me a lot easier to make money out of if you're going to be dishonest. But actually coming forward and talking about your abuse experiences, alleged or otherwise, and pinpointing one individual seems like a very, very high-risk strategy. And I think a lot of people are worried that there is a witch hunt around this, when what I actually see is people and our society accepting that actually child abuse has been condoned tacitly for decades, and people are finally beginning to understand that what happened to them wasn't okay and that we shouldn't accept this.
The standards have changed, and people will say, thank God those standards have changed. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for your thoughts on that particular debate. If you've got something to say about that one, log on to bbc.co.uk/thebigquestions. Follow the link to where you can join the discussion online. You can contribute on Twitter, of course. We're also here live in South London this morning discussing the following: can all religions be right? And later on, does social media reveal men's hatred for women? There's going to be, I can guarantee, some strong feelings on both sides of that debate from people who have been involved in some very interesting exchanges on social media. So get tweeting or emailing on those topics now, or send us any other ideas or thoughts you may have about the programme. Well, today is World Religion Day, organised by the Baha'i Faith. Its aim is to recognise the oneness of humankind through the belief that religion must be the cause of unity. Now, clearly not regular viewers of the big questions. So, can all religions be right? Fidelma, hello.
Hi.
Your message, many people think your message is absolutely inspiring. This is the Baha'i religion. You were a Catholic,
Yes.
became a Baha'i from Northern Ireland. I'm sure people still say you're a Protestant Baha'i or a Catholic Baha'i.
I still get that. I still
Yeah, still get a lot of that. But tell us about this greater truth that you have. And go on.
Well, from the Baha'i perspective, yes, the idea of religion as one force is very much fundamental to Baha'i belief. It's the understanding that all religions are like chapters of one book. There is a progressive nature to religion. Religions come at different time, or the founders of different religions come at different times in the world.
Time appropriate and cultural appropriate.
Absolutely, to really bring out the best potential of human beings, to be the best they can be, and to serve the world. So this idea of what Baha'u'llah said, that religions are like...
Who?
Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of the Baha'i faith, over 100 years ago said that religions are like the rays of one sun, and they proceed from the same one source.
All religions?
All religions, all the world's great religions, or the divine teachers, come from one source.
Divine, sort of Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna. Sorry if I've left anyone out, by the way.
Yeah. That's a good list. That's brilliant.
That's kind of what you're saying.
Yes,
yeah.
that all of these divine educators come from the same one source, with the same spiritual messages. What changes are the social teachings down throughout the ages, and they are applied in different ways to accommodate the different and respond to the different needs of humanity that is changing down through the ages.
So many people will love that idea. Susie Lee, you're an evangelical Christian, your director of Reform.
Yeah.
What a wonderful thought. You know, many people might not believe it, but for those who do, you go to heaven, and there's Buddhists, there's Protestant, there's Catholics, there's Sunni, there's Shia, you name it, they're there, not in different rooms, all together. All together. Is that not a wonderful thought?
It's a wonderful idea, a lovely, lovely thought.
Isn't it beautiful?
But I think it doesn't go to the heart of the differences between the different teachings of all those people, and it really contradicts the very heart of Christianity, and that's one of the problems.
What, the only way to heaven is through Christ?
Jesus himself said, I am the way, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. But more than that, Christianity, unlike most of the other faiths, doesn't believe that we are fundamentally good people who can get a little bit better and we can try hard.
But can I pursue you on the other point? That you're saying the only way to get into the celestial realm is through Christ,
well, through his death on the cross.
Right.
Because we cannot make ourselves good enough for God. We're not improving
Muslims,
ourselves.
Buddhists, they've had it.
Well, I think that the question is whether we have faith that we need Jesus to die for us.
Right.
That's what Jesus...
Right.
Now, we might be wrong, Christians might be wrong, but Christians can't be right and everyone else be right. It just doesn't work.
Well,
so we could be wrong. Christ maybe didn't need to die on the cross. That's quite possible.
Well, okay, you accept you might be wrong.
Yeah, we have faith.
I've got a faith you can join, the Baha'i faith.
I'm convinced that.
You're
I'm
convinced?
by the discussion we've just had.
Reverend Peter Owen-Jones, Sussex vicar, presenter of Around the World in 80 Faiths. You've looked at all this stuff. Now, do you think that all faiths are barking up the same tree, or are they just barking? What do you think? Do you go with the Baha'i or do you go with Susie?
I think all faiths are asking the same questions.
There we are.
And those are important questions, and I feel that as part of the freedom of being a human being, that we need to be free to ask those questions. What it is to love, what it is to seek justice, what it is to experience grace, what it is to experience gratitude. These are very important human questions. This is about human stuff. I think where it starts to unravel and turn ugly is where one faith believes that it has the right to impose that view on others in any way that it seeks. And I learned over time that the religions that I felt comfortable with were ones that were really expressing love in action. Mm-hmm. And those were the religions that were trying to convert me to their perspective at the expense of everything else. That I wasn't to look left, I wasn't to look right, I was to concentrate on that and that alone. At that point, I became very uncomfortable.
So it was those with certainty who said, look...
Yeah, I think certainty can turn
overrated.
Toxic. It can just turn toxic very quickly.
Yeah. Thoughts from the audience? One God? Is it one God? So very quick thoughts, if you would. Gentleman in the stripy shirt. Quick one.
Couldn't the one son from which those rays are emanating be humanity rather than something other than humanity?
Oh, yeah.
And couldn't the narratives that religion put forward that actually ultimately pull people culturally together, but between cultures apart, be the problem rather than the solution?
And too long from you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm from a group called London Black Atheists, so we don't actually believe in religion at all. That we think religion makes a load of claims for itself, which are absolutely false, and none of them have ever been proven to be true. There's no doubt at all that if you were to follow religions, you would lose your way rather than finding your way. You would find lies instead of truth, and you would probably die instead of being led to life.
Okay. The great teachers, Krishna and Muhammad and Jesus and Dawkins, they're all going to be there. They're all... I love Richard, he's a great guest on the programme, we'll have it as well. I just had a thought, a rare thing, but I did for Delma, which is that you're talking about all the great teachers that have been sent, and I gave that list of the great teachers through time, but then I thought, what about Joseph Smith, who, for example, from the Mormon religion, who met the angel Moroni thrice and was given gold plates. And would he qualify as somebody who was sent?
No, we wouldn't see
You're
Joseph
drawing the
Smith.
line, aren't you?
But we would say that he's an inspired person.
But he wasn't sent...
But not as a manifestation of God.
Well, how can you tell? How can you tell?
I guess this is where Baha'u'llah just says, investigate truth for yourself. Just go out, look into it with a searching eye, with a scientific approach. And I loved what Peter had said, that the thing that puts people off religion is when the dogma and teachings are being shoved down your throat, whereas what we've been asked to do as mature individuals is search out truth for ourselves.
Indeed, so Baha'u'llah, was he the last prophet? Because it kind of get, that hand game, I used to play it with my grandfather, the hand game like that, as to who's the last prophet.
The latest but not the last is how...
The latest.
The latest but not the last in this progressive line. Just like educators in a school.
I'll be with you, Amina, in a second. Kate Smurthwaite, very quickly.
Well, firstly, I just want to take issue with one thing that you say, Fidelma, which is, religion as a progressive force. The fact is there are a handful of occasions, and literally a handful, when religion historically has done something progressive, but there are absolutely overwhelming numbers of examples where religion has been a force against progressiveness, and we live in a world where there's lots of homophobia out there. A lot of it is religiously motivated. There's a lot of negative attitudes towards things like women's reproductive rights, and they have a huge negative effect on millions and billions of women around the world, and they're driven by religion. Now, actually what Susie says is right, is that if you look at these religions in any detail, they are not all compatible. It's absolutely impossible to sit there and go, well, I think we all believe in the same God, but of course you practice it in a way which means gender apartheid, which means homophobia, which means taking rights away from people. And it's not okay. When you look at all of these things and how incompatible they are, either there's one true God, or what we've seen is the same kind of delusions occurring in lots of different places, in lots of points around the world, and what we should do is accept that they are delusions and move on in a humanist way with progressive social values from here.
Right. All those great teachers, though. I won't ask you about L. Ron Hubbard, though. I think we probably wouldn't include him. Amina, Muslim Council of Britain, you converted from Christianity to Islam. Why do you believe Islam is right? Is it the true religion?
To me, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Right.
I was brought up as a Christian, love the teachings of the Bible, but I'm also very much a pragmatist. I like to have things proved to me before I will follow them. So I was looking for the truth. And I had a friend who was Muslim, and she told me about the Quran. I was looking into the Quran, and there were lots of so many scientific facts in the Quran, which was written 1400 years ago by an illiterate guy in a desert. I couldn't deny that it was the truth. These were things that they wouldn't have known then. So that
A lot of stuff was
in
written
my book,
a lot of that stuff was written before by Galen and people like that, the ancient Greeks. But he might not have heard that.
He wouldn't have known that anyway. So even if that was the case,
merchant routes maybe would have.
Even if that was the case, there would be no way that he would have been able to have access to this. So many of the scientific facts in the Quran are only just being revealed now, you know, sort of by modern science.
It says the world's flat, doesn't it, in the Quran, laid out like a carpet?
No, it says that the world is egg-shaped, which scientifically it is.
Well, they used to say, scholars used to say, when they thought the world was flat, that it says the world is flat.
Yeah,
and now so things change, don't they?
In the West, I think the Western scholars would say, yes, the world is flat, and if you go far enough, you're going to fall off the edge. I remember being taught that.
What's the clincher for you?
What's the
clincher?
For being a Muslim?
Yeah.
I can ask any question of Islam, and it will give me a logical and scientifically proven answer. But I think very much in this debate, the essence of faith is, I think personally that Islam is correct. Other people, of course, will debate that with me and disagree with me. And that's the beauty of religion, and that we must absolutely be tolerant of other religions or non-religions, because very much we talk about religion, we forget about people's beliefs in non-religion. So, for example, if someone's a capitalist or a
but
whatever,
beliefs have changed with science, and now most of the modern religions accept science. They accept evolution. They accept the science. They accept all those things because they've really got no choice, have they?
Absolutely, but I mean, if you look back at Darwin, for example, there was a massive clash between Darwin theories and the church
at the time,
because
many church people got on board with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But what was happening, obviously, was because the Darwinistic theories were completely contradicting what the Bible was saying. People were being kind of forced into a camp. Okay, you either have to be one side or the other side. You can't be both. And people felt very divided.
It's not the case now, though, isn't it? Most of the churches do. So, Kate, do you want to come back here?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, this idea that something in the Quran is somehow proves and has been proven by science, I mean, firstly, it's just not true. There are verses that contradict other parts of the Quran. There are verses... It says in the Quran that you can't mix salt water with fresh water. I mean, you can disprove that in your home with a couple of glasses and a bowl. It's very straightforward to demonstrate that a lot of what is in the Quran is absolute nonsense. And the same, I must say, applies to every other religious text out there. You know, there just isn't one that makes any sense. And that's why the vast majority of people, you know, who study sciences and things like that are atheists like myself. And the fact is that when we look at the facts... Now, there's a whole other question about what are people looking for when they go looking for religion and what are they getting out of it.
Many of the great scientists in the world are also people of faith, you know, so it's absolutely compatible.
But there are very few who are actually followers of specific religious books, right? There are some who there are some out there who I think
some of the great evolutionary biologists in the world are Christians, people like Ken Miller and people like that, you know.
But isn't that just an example of complete cognitive dissonance?
I've been wondering about this since you said the Quran was right about the shape of the Earth. But what sort of egg is shaped like the Earth?
What sort of egg? Well, the egg isn't precisely round, is it, scientifically? Scientists have realised that the
I've never seen an egg which is more or less I've never seen an egg which is more or less a globe, but just slightly flattened at either end.
Peter, Peter,
if you pick up a scientific journal from the 1840s or 1850s and read it, you know, you're going to find parts of it exceedingly humorous. To really suggest that science, you know, science and the facts is the way that we need to go, that's what we need to hang on to completely, really negates the fact that this is something that's continually evolving and moving.
But this is not about science.
And that you and I have no right to the truth. We have a right to explore the truth.
Then you're absolutely misunderstanding what the scientific method is. The scientific method is not about going, I believe in science, and it was interesting that earlier we heard atheism being referred to as a belief. It's not. If somebody can
How can it be a belief?
Exactly. If somebody can come and demonstrate to me that there is a God, then I'll absolutely be religious tomorrow. But the fact is, when you look at the proof and the facts, science is not about saying, I believe this because I want to believe this. Science is about saying, there's a method, we do an experiment, it's repeatable, we demonstrate something, and then we have a theory and a hypothesis, and then we prove it, and then we can keep going on and testing it, we look for new evidence. And what I think changes as I see proof and evidence for these things. It's not about belief.
You can't prove the existence of God.
No, that's
the whole
my point.
about God is faith.
He doesn't exist.
Do you know what?
But exactly,
over nearly 9 years of this programme, believe it or not, wait, believe it or not, we have debated whether God exists or not.
I know,
on a few
but we
occasions.
haven't.
I want to take it back, if I may.
I
want to take it back, if I may, to the fact that they're all divine. All the people who've been sent were divines. Abraham, Adam, Jesus, Muhammad, Joshua, your good self this morning. It sounds good, doesn't it? All men, you say?
No, you just did a list. They were all men, weren't they?
No, shush, Peter. Shush, Peter. All men for Delma.
If I could come in actually on this idea that
where are the women that have been sent?
Miriam?
Well, just let me just take a step back for a moment and this question about God. One of the understandings I have from a Baha'i perspective is that God is unknowable, but these sacred figures are sent into the world for us to actually look into their lives in a scientific and a rigorous way and see, do these teachings make sense and make me and the world better? That's a sanity check for religion, actually.
But
does it make me better?
I think that's where Christianity is so different. Because to say that God is unknowable is to deny that Jesus Christ came to earth, the Son of God, to reveal himself to us. We can know God because Jesus Christ was God. And that I agree is an extraordinary claim. Jesus Christ was God. And he came not so that we could search him out.
Not according to Amina. Isa was not God, and Muhammad very plainly said, this is nonsense.
And that's why I'm saying that the difficulty of saying that all religions are the same. Okay. They can't all be right.
Peter, they can't all be right. Is it possible then to get rid of the ritual and the beliefs and the doctrines and the encumbrances and just say, forget all that stuff, that's all man-made, there is one God and it's the same God, unless you maybe believe in lots of different gods, polytheism. Is it difficult to cut through all that stuff?
I think when we hang on to, when we are hanging on to dear life, to Christ or to Muhammad or to Bahubali, or indeed to the founder of the Baha'i faith, I think then we're in trouble of actually not being able to see behind us and around us. And I think that each human being has the capacity to experience what effectively is the great mystery of existence, the great mystery of love. And what I'm seeing currently around the planet is that the development of human consciousness, the development of building a world of peace is actually being held back by many of our ancient belief systems. I think what I'm interested in is saying, well, have we reached a point now where we have drunk from these cups as far as we can? And if we're going to have a World Interfaith Day, really what does that mean? For instance, has the time now come for all religions to renounce violence?
Well,
Should that be on the table now?
Listen, I don't know who sent you. But a lot of people will like the cut of your jib. Thank you very much indeed for your contributions. Well, you can join in all the debates, the morning's debates, logging on to bbc.co.uk/thebigquestions. Follow the link to the online discussion. Tweet using the hashtag BBCTBQ. And tell us what you think about our last big question. Does social media reveal men's hatred for women? Now, if you'd like to be in the audience at a future show, email audience@menton.tv. We are going to be in Edinburgh next week, Bradford on January the 31st, Southampton the week after that. Well, 45 years ago in that feminist primer, still worth reading, The Female Eunuch, Germaine Greer argued that women did not realise how much men hate them. They know now. The advent of social media sites like Twitter and Facebook has displayed some men's views of some women to a worldwide audience. A lot of it is very nasty. Rape threats, death threats made even against recently a woman whose only crime was to support an X Factor contestant. does social media reveal men's hatred for women? Kate, you were on this programme. You made a comment when you were on this programme last time. I can't even remember what it was, but as ever, it was interesting, it was controversial, it was stimulating.
It wasn't. It was a tiny little comment.
What did you say?
It was just about the way that somebody was being addressed. But so let's just do this.
And what's happened to you as a result of it?
Well, so first of all, let's just start at the top. Does social media reveal men's... I mean, absolutely, of course it does. And we've known that these attitudes are out there for a long time. And social media does exactly that. It's always done that. It takes all these opinions from around the world. But it actually does a lot more than that as well. The other thing that it does is it allows people to access you when you should be safe in your home. You know, suddenly, once upon a time, if there were 100 people gathered outside your house shouting something at you, you would have called the police and it would have been dealt with. But these days, because of social media, people from all over the world, people you would otherwise probably not go anywhere near, are able to get to you, as it were.
So what was it like for you when you...
So what happened for me was that I was on this show about a year ago, and we were in a debate about gender equality with Milo, and what happened was that afterwards, I received, in 48 hours, I received 165 pages of Twitter abuse, including about 20 rape and death threats, including unpleasant comments about my appearance, lots and lots of those.
Because of what you said to Milo over here?
Well, not because, I mean, many of them were from Milo, and many of them were egged on by him, many of them were encouraged by him, many people were retweeting him, you know, my head photoshopped onto unattractive bodies, this kind of thing, pictures of me manipulated to look horrible or whatever. And the fact is that I'm not the first or the last person to have been on the receiving end of this kind of onslaught. And these are not people questioning what I'd said. From Milo and from a group of people that he supports and encourages. And, you know, if I was in that situation and supporters of mine were to do this kind of thing, I would, of course, turn around and say, hey, this is not cool, this is not okay. But instead of which, you know, egged on by a community of a deep-rooted misogynists, this is the world that we now live in. And it's not just me. Lots and lots of women have been affected by this, including teenagers, including women from all around the world.
OK, Milo.
It's about time we addressed it.
What have you turned into? What have you turned into?
I used to be such a nice young man.
Well, you did. You're a kind of Führer of the Furious now.
How can you
You're sort of Major General of misogyny.
It's hard to believe, isn't it, that this...
well, why have your army reacted like that? You can't support those comments.
No, of course not. But here's the thing. I understand why Kate doesn't understand how fame works, but I do. And the thing is, you know, I'm not particularly interested in a professional provocateur who goes out and says deliberately outrageous things, like I do, turning around and then playing the victim when she doesn't like ridicule or criticism afterwards.
I don't say anything outrageous.
Ridicule, let me finish. I'll let you finish.
Rights.
I'll let you finish, so stop. You know,
no.
After she lost the debate, as feminists very often do these days, because they've got facts on their side, you know, she turned around and she did what feminists always do, which is confect a sob story. Now, Kate is like professional provocateur, but only one of us plays the victim afterwards. Now, it's interesting, you know, if we get back to the question, it's interesting that, you know, that it's even being framed like this at all, because what the research shows, the Pew Global data from 2014 shows, is that actually it's men who get more abuse online than women. It is men who get more death threats, it's men who get more violent threats. The only thing that women beat men at, and this is Pew Global data, is the gold standard of research, the only thing that women beat men in is cyber stalking. And guess what? A lot of the people doing the stalking are other women. What social media shows isn't that men hate women, it's that women hate everyone. And that women are the primary...
Wait.
Let me just finish this. Let me finish this point. I promise
That's
I'll be quick.
That's an outrageous thing to say.
I promise I'm going to qualify. I'm going to explain what I mean by that, right?
It's amazing how much time you're getting saying all these
I'm going to get to you, Connie.
OK, explain that to my 4 daughters, what you just said.
Not only...
Take the camera off it.
Not only... Not only...
Free speech.
Not only...
Speech doesn't mean that it's not outrageous.
Well, we'll talk about your free speech about Tim Hunt in a minute. Not only are men the primary victims...
This is the man who
Not only are men the primary victims of this, but women are the primary perpetrators.
Wait, let him finish.
Now, it's interesting, isn't it?
Why should we let him finish?
How much time are you
giving him?
Okay.
How much time are you giving him?
Connie.
This is the man who went on Twitter recently and said he wanted somebody assassinated.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
You're a liar.
Yeah.
You lied about Tim Hunt. You lied about Tim Hunt, and now you're lying about me.
He said he wants
Please,
somebody
Milo,
assassinated.
let Connie...
Make
let
him
Connie...
shut up.
You are
need to
a
moderate.
fraud and you are a liar.
If I were to leave you all... If I were to walk out of the studio now and leave you all to it, mayhem would ensue.
Nicky, if you were to walk out of the studio, I would come with you, because I don't believe you
Connie,
should
I'll
be giving
come to you,
airtime
if you
to
don't
someone
mind.
who says serial
Okay.
Connie, you are
Wait a minute, wait a minute. I want silence.
Come on.
I want silence. I want us all to enjoy just a little 10-second window of silence, and then we can all calm down. No talking for 10 seconds. Kate, what were you going to say?
What I was going to say is that, I don't want this to be a debate about one individual. I think it's a shame that people give airtime to somebody, whose views and whose completely horrific statements have been so widely seen, and we should be no better.
It's good to challenge them, isn't it?
The point is that there is a huge, huge weight of, and young women especially who go out and speak up online are facing a huge backlash, and I think it's very frightening. I'm often asked to do things like go into schools, and teachers always want me to go in and encourage young women to speak up and express themselves, and I'm forced to say I don't actually think that young women are stupid. I don't think that when they don't express themselves it's because they're all bashful and nervous and they don't know what to say. I think that they know what social media is really like. I think the facts are pretty plain to see.
View of women.
And I think that that if we want young people to speak out and to feel comfortable expressing themselves, then what we need to do is make the internet a place where they can do so. That means bringing in sensible laws and training the police to deal with these kind of things. And there's a sort of echo in the background.
I'm going to come to you in a minute, and Connie, I'm going to come to you for a nice little bit in a minute.
We need the
Very
police
quickly.
to be trained how to deal with this. We need straightforward training on when to act and when not to act, to make sure that the worst things, the rape and the death threats, the horrific harassment and abuse is dealt with. And I think that when we see a few high-profile individuals, perhaps including some in this studio, locked up, it'll be time for other people to back off.
Okay,
and I very, very much look forward to that day.
All right, Milo, I'll come to you. Connie, I'm going to come to you in just a second, OK? That's all right, and we'll have a... Yeah, you can. You were going to come back in.
Yeah, let me...
No, over here.
Someone has to reveal how very similar these two arguments are, because what actually both Milo and Kate are saying is that people can be made to feel victimised and very nervous and scared of the internet, whether that be men or women. But actually, I want to pull, and it's both kind of very pathetic view of how people deal with insults and words, because really most people, especially on Twitter,
I'm talking about
when they receive this kind of crap,
rape and death.
Rape and death threats are bad, but when they receive this kind of rubbish on Twitter, they block or they ignore. And I really want to pick up on this idea that women...
Please, Kate, let us...
It's very telling. That's kind of, this is what happens. Middle-class women decide that they want to take on the plight of women, and that women are victimised. Women can't handle the internet. It's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting and sexist and patronising to say that women can't handle the internet.
Racist.
The internet should never be a safe space. The internet women should be able to experience everything about public life. We fought for that throughout history, and here's somebody who wants to shut us away from it.
OK, well, listen, here's the plan. I'm going to go from Connie to Connie. We're going to hear Connie's story, and I'm going to get Milo to respond, and then Kate, we'll get another...
Please no more about these egomaniacs.
No more about egomaniacs as well. And any audience who want to say something? OK, that's ideally how it's going to be structured. All right. Connie, we heard reference to him and the whole situation, the saga there from Milo Yiannopoulos. Professor Tim Hunt, he made a really not very funny off-taste joke, and he did it in a lecture hall? It was a room full of in South Korea. Some would say it wasn't hugely offensive, got worldwide attention. Ultimately, nothing to do with you, but he lost his job. But you had drawn people's attention to it. But then the reaction to your reaction was just extraordinary. What have you gone through?
So this has been really dreadful, and it's kind of exhibited here by the way Milo felt he could just shout abuse across the studio at me. And I think what's really interesting about this is that it's not about how people use the Twitter. It's about people trying to maintain a political status quo. So a lot of what goes on, there are people in America like Rush Limbaugh who have a very right-wing ideology, and that means they don't want to hear from women, they don't want to hear from people of other colours, they don't want to hear any other contrasting conservative view. And these people are very loud, and these people are very determined to shut a lot of people up. So I report something, I'm a journalist, I can report things, and in the end, in order to protect some stupid comment, then I have to be discredited. I don't have to be discredited. I did nothing wrong. I'm not a liar. I don't have to even defend myself. As a journalist, I can put a story out there.
What
it
happened
was
to you?
correct.
What kind of abuse did you have online
So
through emails?
I didn't just have abuse online. I had lots of letters sent to my office that were very racist. People would phone me up and scream really racist things. They would send me pictures of monkeys hanging in trees with saying, go back to your hut, go back to your jungle, you're not welcome here. It's like we are back 50 years in the racial economy of this country. People are really crude, and it's very sad for people like me who've been here and you're trying to make things different for the next generation. And there's no change. This country is just as racist, just as white, male privileged as it has always been.
Some people. These are some people. These are people who would never say it to your face. They're keyboard warriors, aren't they?
They never say it to your face, and they always say all these abusive things. They won't stand up and own their statements.
It's a minority of men.
And it's not about hatred.
It's a minority of men.
This is victimizes the currency.
Hang on.
No, it's hundreds and thousands of men if you're trying to...
but there are millions of men. Right? So
yeah.
Milo, I said we'd come to Milo. I mean, I know you want to respond to that, but you did this poll online.
Yes, I did.
What would you rather your child had, feminism or cancer?
Yep. And 22,000 people voted, and people voted in favour of cancer.
It's a good scientific thing.
What the statistics show us is that in just 2 years, the number of women who identify as a feminist in the US has gone from 28 to 18%. The number of British women who identify as feminists has slumped to an all-time low of 7%. Why? Because these are the kinds of representatives of feminism. Professional provocateurs who play the victim after the fact, and professors of science journalism who deliberately misrepresent statements by Nobel Prize-winning scientists in an attempt to end their career, who repeatedly lie to journalists, BuzzFeed, The Daily Beast, the BBC, all of them have had to issue
No, you're a liar.
All of them have had to issue corrections over statements you made.
People can just look this up.
And this, of course, is a professor of science journalism who fabricated her CV as well.
We have to get a response from that. Audience in a minute, put your hands up so I know where to come.
If you're not going to let me make the case...
Well, she has to respond to that.
Well, I'm going to make specific accusations she can respond to.
Who cares about people throwing back accusations at themselves? I'm sure really not many people are interested in what's going on between you three. They're not, because, I mean, this is what people like this do on Twitter. They create a hubbub around controversial stuff. They say, this poll, if you're any kind of, like, intellectual person or with half a brain, you'd laugh at such rubbish. I don't, but I also don't want to... this is the whole thing about Twitter and the internet. If you're going to be a political person, and journalists are political people, you put out opinion there. And I often put out opinions that people find absolutely abhorrent and disgusting because they don't agree with me. And the emotional overreaction to that comes in the form of, you're fat, you're this, all horrible stuff. Yes, and it's unpleasant, but the whole point is, as you're taking that risk to step out into
from a tree.
Ella,
yeah, I mean, I'm not condoning this.
But you are.
No, I'm not condoning this. But what do we ask? Please, what do we ask?
Okay, Milo, wait, call me in a second.
Racism is
do we bring in more laws and regulations?
Milo, a monkey hanging from a tree.
I'm being completely mischaracterised because I'm very much on your camp on the free speech thing. It is disgusting and deplorable.
You are a liar.
It's disgusting and deplorable why anybody would want to send anybody that kind of racist abuse. It's awful. I would never want to be in the same room as somebody like that. However...
And yet they're your followers and your fans.
However...
And you don't even have...
Let's hear the...
It's not about you.
However, I am not responsible for what other people put on Twitter. 150,000 people follow me on Twitter, 50,000 on YouTube, 75,000 on Facebook. I am not responsible. I am not responsible as a public figure for what a tiny minority of idiots say to people that I disagree with. Yet I'm held accountable for it in a studio, and I was accused of calling for someone's assassination. These are outright, incredible, galling lies from people who have a history of dishonesty.
Okay, Connie.
We've seen the tweet.
Hands up. Connie,
it's all over the web.
Yes, your fabricated CV is all over the web as well.
And because
you lied about your bylines, you lied about your qualifications, and you lied about Tim Hunt. You are a professor of science journalism. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Should we let Connie respond to that?
Easy, Milo.
pathetic.
See? I've got 150,000 followers in the audience.
Yeah, but your account's verified, Nicky.
Connie.
So, Milo just called for somebody to be assassinated. Twitter essentially struck him off.
He's saying he didn't.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. What was the tweet?
Of course, he's lying.
What was the tweet? What was the wording of the tweet? What did it say?
So, actually, we don't need to believe everything he's saying.
What did it say?
He's a particular...
What did the tweet say?
Milo, let's hear Connie.
He's a particular kind...
Someone's assassination. That's a crime. She should justify herself.
OK, Connie.
He's a particular kind of person that makes his money and his fortune on Twitter, and he wants to develop his public persona on Twitter. There's lots of people like him around.
How did he call for someone's assassination?
He called for it on a tweet because somebody challenged
Whose
him.
assassination?
And
What was the wording?
As a result, Twitter have unverified or de-verified him.
Not true. Total lie.
And now you wrote about it yourself, Milo. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
It's just not true.
And this is...
You need to address the allegations.
This is the kind of person that has tried to make a fortune and their fame on Twitter because they're desperate.
What?
Exactly. So why do we care about this?
So my colleague in America, one of my colleagues, Charles Blow, is a very, very fine commentator on Annie writes for the New York Times, and he wrote recently something, and as a result, he also got a death threat. And he said to Twitter, isn't it time you take some of these people off Twitter? And Twitter said, just contact the police if somebody shoots you. This person threatened to shoot him on Twitter. And people like Milo are those kind of people, and they need to be taken off. And they need to be taken off by Twitter.
Quick audience. So, gentlemen, please make it quick comments. We're coming to the end. Quick comments.
Yeah, I think ladies over here who suffered this abuse and all other women and men, and just for people to say things like, oh, just block them, just delete them, just ignore it. It's terrible. Like, they've been abused. They need to be held accountable for that.
They're just words.
They're just words. Go on.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I mean, social media it really is just a petri dish of the entirety of society, really. But I have to say that a vacuous person like this is not representative of men on social media.
But, you know, Milo, you're a controversialist, you know.
Controversialist or egomaniac. I mean, the point is...
But you defend his right to be a controversialist.
I defend anybody's right to say anything, and that's the important distinction between what I'm saying and what everybody else is saying, is that I think you should be able to say the most abhorrent, the most awful things, because words are words, and especially on Twitter. The only time I would ever be afraid of a man, or a man would ever intimidate me, is if he was threatening my life. Physically. That can't happen on Twitter because it's just words. The amount of stuff that you get, death threats, evil stuff, block them. Be an adult. Are you a girl or are you a woman? Be an adult, please.
You have got about 40 seconds to respond, Milo, and get the last word in here. Because there's a lot of accusations. It's time.
Very straight.
Lots of people talking.
This is very straightforward. Let's not make it about me. You've got lying feminists throwing accusations. Who cares?
Okay, now we've just been accused.
Let's not. The fact is that the research does not support the premise of this question. It does not support them. It does not support any of the stuff you're talking
you just said lying feminists.
Internet abuse is a very real thing, and it silences women's voices. It makes women afraid to speak out, and there's so many important reasons why they should be able to. There are young people who have committed suicide because of internet abuse, and yet we have people here who not only support it, but who do it themselves.
Thank you. No. Look, thanks for watching. We will see you next week. Tweet away.